There, it's Jordan Snyder, and this is going to be for my final project on critical thinking. And I've chosen an article that's a little bit near and dear to my heart, mainly because I am a prior service Marine. The article that I've chosen is in support of modern day amphibious operations and why they're relevant on the modern battle space. And I think that's super important now because I think now more than ever, people are invested in military spending and knowing where our money is going and if it's going to the right things, if it's going to the wrong things, what we're spending our money on, and how is it relevant. And I know this has been an argument for a long time on if you don't use something for a long period of time, a lot of people seem to think like, oh, it's redundant, it doesn't have a place anymore. A great example is the Marine Corps completely liquidated all their tanks. We got rid of all of them. This was done shortly after I got out because we said, we don't need these anymore. There's no spot for them on the modern battlefield. There's so many things that can be used to counter them. You know, they're useless. Well, a year later, the Ukraine conflict popped off. And in the very beginning, the metric of success was determined by which side had more artillery shells and which side had more tanks. And now we find ourselves in the Marine Corps specifically at a detriment because we got rid of all of them. So now we're kind of playing catch up because just because there were no modern tank battles like there were back in World War II didn't necessarily mean that they were irrelevant, but because we weren't using them, people began to believe that they had no relevancy anymore. And that is what I think is happening with amphibious operations as well. So that's why I chose this article. I have a little bit of a script written. The article I've chosen is in regards to wartime amphibious operations and its relevancy on the modern battlefield. Like I said before, I'm a bit passionate about this argument due to the fact that I am a prior service Marine, and this is something that we were consistently training for, and it's a really big part of our culture. It's a big part of our ethos. We're the only branch that's required to do a swim qualification every year, and I think that just goes to support the fact that I do have I can identify I have a little bit of bias in this. I did choose this article because I do believe this author does a really good job of putting bias to the side and only using factual examples to support his argument. And the argument or point that's being made in this specific article is that despite some challenges and criticism, the ability to conduct amphibious operations should still be given extensive consideration and should not be regarded as a strategy of the past. And that the modern battlefield still may require forces that have the capability to project power from shore to shore. And the writer does a really good job of supporting this theory with factual examples by providing clear examples of previous occasions in history where senior officials have openly voiced their skepticism of the validity of amphibious operations. One of the big examples that the writer provides is the quote that General Omar Bradley, who was a major general in the Army during World War II in the European theater, he briefed the House Armed Services Committee that daytime amphibious landings would be suicidal on the modern day battlefield. A year later, the United States Marine Corps landed on the beaches of Incheon, Korea, and changed the tide of the Korean War. This is considered to be one of the most successful amphibious landings of all time and can be directly credited to a more favorable outcome of the Korean War. So the author provided an example saying, hey, this senior official said this isn't relevant anymore. We need to really think about getting rid of it. And then a year later, that official was proven wrong. And then no one was willing to really entertain that argument again for some time. Later on in the article, let me go back to it. This wasn't in my script. In 2010, Secretary of Defense Robert Gates questioned the future of amphibious operations in a changing security environment. So once again, a senior U.S. official openly questioning the validity of amphibious operations on the modern battlefield. Let me go back to my notes. Now here we are here in an environment where both the United States and China are consistently upgrading their amphibious capabilities, and the two biggest superpowers in the world would not be investing money in such capabilities if they did not truly believe that they were going to be relevant. It's highly theorized that the next large conflict is going to be waged in the South China Sea. And if that is to be the case, then the United States needs to continue to develop its amphibious capabilities, because we're simply not going to be able to fight a war overseas if we don't have amphibious forces to do it. And I partly chose this specific article because it has been used at the Modern War Institute at West Point, which is responsible for the training of officers for the United States Army. There's a certain expectation of quality and consistency among the publications this university uses, as they directly impact the quality of officer our armed forces will receive. And then when I looked a little bit further into the article, I discovered that the author is also a Marine, which admittedly may have led to some bias, because I think Marines are very prideful creatures, and we want to support our existence. We were always told America doesn't need a Marine Corps, America wants a Marine Corps. So I think the author was probably pretty enthusiastic to write this article in defense of, basically our fraternity. Without amphibious operations, I think people wouldn't look at the Marine Corps the same way. So this person may have felt the need to defend the Marine Corps in support of this theory, but fortunately, I think they overcame that bias by using specific examples, by using quotes, and using instances where people thought that amphibious operations were no longer relevant, and then shortly thereafter, they were proven wrong. I believe this author managed to do an excellent job of remaining impartial and using factual evidence to support the claim. The author reinforces claim by addressing the current buildup of amphibious capabilities by both China and the United States in anticipation, of a conflict occurring over Taiwan in the South China Sea. So that's really all I have for the article. I want to say I really enjoyed your class. I think taking this class and interpersonal communication was a great combo, and I definitely learned a lot from both of them. Thank you so much.